Hello, I am Poetic Heretic, and today we will be looking at the Strength card, also known as the Lust card in some decks. As always, if you're watching when this is not live, feel free to fast forward until 5 minutes in, where we will begin the main part of the material. And for now, I will set everything up. I will set up the stream. How do we look inbound? That was a bit distorted. Hang on. Do we sound good? It's a bit distorted. Do we sound good? Okay, I think we're good. Are we good? If anyone has any technical difficulties, let me know. And we are less than 4 minutes away from beginning this stream, from officially beginning. My add this button is working again. Let's see, I'm live, and I'm liking the Strength card. Watch. Come watch the many mysteries. Oh, it is so cold here today. So cold. Even with this hoodie on, I'm still like freezing. And we are about 2 minutes away from beginning. Alright. So yes, I'll be giving my interpretation of the card. And then I'll be looking up additional interpretations. I'll be taking comments and questions about the material only, for the most part anyway. And we'll go from there. We're 1.5 minutes away from beginning. All right. And of course, I'll make some preliminary remarks, but I'll do that mainly the 5-minute mark when this officially begins. Hello, Ryan. How are you today? Hope you're doing well. We are 1 minute away from beginning. God, it's freezing in here. Hang on 1 second. Yes, my heater is on, but it's still really cold. Let's fix that. So yes, I'll be going over the Strength card, a very interesting card. And hopefully I'll be live for about 2 hours, and I'll go have lunch and then come back and analyze it some more. It should be a lot of fun. 10 seconds. Okay, here it comes, here it comes. Okay, I see we are 5 minutes in, and so let us begin. So today we are indeed going to be looking at the Strength card that I have right here. It is also known as the Lust card in some decks, and we'll get into more of why that is, I'm sure. I'll just make my usual preliminary remarks, my little disclaimers. First of all, I do not belong to any occult order or anything like that. I'm coming into this from a highly individualistic perspective. This is stuff I've all just kind of figured out on my own and through like researching what other people have figured out and stuff like that. The point is I'm not affiliated with any organization or whatever, and I wouldn't even necessarily call myself an expert on tarot, though I have been studying it for a couple of years, and I think I've attained a pretty good degree of knowledge about it that I have to share. But I am here learning just as much as anyone is as we proceed today. So, yeah, don't think that I have all the answers because I don't. And let's see, what other preliminary remarks? Well, I'm sure I'll have to repeat myself many times throughout this stream and part 2 today with what I'm about to say, but indeed, this is not a stream where we are doing tarot readings. I think that should be obvious from the title and thumbnail, but if people really want tarot readings, then we can do them between articles that we analyze, but other than that, that's not what this is about. So, what the hell else is there? Yeah, basically the format will be the usual. For those who are familiar, they know what to expect, but anyone who is not, I'll be giving my interpretation of the card first, and then I'll answer any comments or questions about the material, and then I'll look up additional interpretations, and we'll talk about those, and basically just go from there. Just read one article after another, or an entry in a book or whatever. Before the stream, I was able to find a couple of books that I have on my computer that relate to the Strength card, that have stuff about the Strength card, so we can look at those. And I think that's about it for my preliminary remarks. So what are you guys saying? Hello, Angel Moon. Welcome. I'm doing well. Work will be picking up in the new year, and went to the holiday party and ordered some things off Amazon. Sounds like a lot of fun, Ryan. Sounds like a lot of fun. I always keep my eyes on Amazon. So anyway, again, it is freezing in here, so I hope I can concentrate until it warms up. But let's get into the card itself. The Strength card, card 8 of the Major Arcana. It is also known as the Lust card in other decks, including the Crowley Thoth deck, and it's also numbered 11 in that deck instead of 8, which we'll get into more of that. So, my interpretation of this card mainly is that it talks about the part of life where one must learn how to use their mind to tame their deeper and darker, more negative, more destructive emotions and impulses. That's really the fundamental message of this card. And that's why it shows a woman taming a lion. The woman represents the mind or the intellect, very peacefully embracing, working with the negative emotions, or the darker impulses, more primitive impulses, things of that nature. That's why, how should I say this? The idea, however, is not to resist such things. If you do that, that will just make them worse, and that is why it shows a picture of someone taming this wild animal, and it shows that the wild animal here, the lion here, enjoys being tamed. You know, you can see closely there, it's in a state of I don't know what we could call it, contentment perhaps. I wish it would focus. There it goes. The lion is in a state of contentment as the woman gently tames it. And so, again, it's the idea of using the intellect. And so this ties into the magician card in some interesting ways, and well, some other cards too, perhaps. But I particularly notice its connection to the magician card. And that is also because of the symbol above her head is the same symbol that we see above the magician's head on that card. And so, again, it's this idea of using the intellect to work with something. So like the magician used the intellect to work with the tools of physical reality and stuff like that, whereas the woman on this card is using her intellect to work more with the emotions or the more primitive impulses and stuff like that. And so it's really this idea of, well, people talk about strength, this idea of strength. People say, be strong. And I want to ask, well, what is strength really? What really is strength? Because I think that most people have this idea, or at least many people seem to have this idea, that strength is somehow forcing yourself to do what needs to be done in the face of negative emotion or despite negative emotion. And that's just not accurate, because that's a resistant stance. Instead, what we see in this card is a working with the darker impulses that one may have, or the negative emotions, or whatever. And so I think that real strength is not this this BS idea, basically, of where we need to suffer in order to feel good. No, I think real strength is knowing how to use our intellect, use our mind to rein in our darker emotions. We really have to dispel this poisonous idea of resisting emotion somehow being a good thing, of resisting, especially resisting negative emotion, somehow being a good thing. It's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. And a lot of people have trained themselves how to do that as a sort of coping mechanism. They've developed stoicism, or they've developed emotional control, perhaps. And I would say that there's a right way and a wrong way to achieve emotional control. And a lot of people are doing it the wrong way. They think that emotional control, and they think that having strength is just basically acting as if your emotions don't exist. And this card tells us otherwise. This card tells us that's not the case. That's not the idea. A nice thick blanket and some ginger tea. I agree, Ryan. That would be nice. It is still freezing in here right now as I'm live, but it should warm up soon enough, hopefully. So, what else can we say about this card? Let me think for a moment. Let me think where I want to take this next. The card is ruled by the sign of Leo, the lion, appropriately. The sign that talks about being bold, being courageous, being passionate, being in the spotlight. The sign most strongly associated with the ego, and that ties into its being ruled by the sun, which the strength card itself is also ruled by the sun. So there's also this element of boldness, perhaps, to this card, and it ties into a number of things. But before I get to that, I would just say that as far as the journey through the major arcana side of things is concerned, like what does the strength card represent? What part of human consciousness does it represent? To the best of my knowledge, it is essentially this idea of using the mind to rein in the darker emotions, but to work with them so as to master them. So I want to make that clear first before we get into the other stuff. So with all of that said, as we move more into like the various interpretations of the card and its other connotations and stuff like that, well, One thing we, of course, see is its connotation with sexuality, and we'll be looking at that more when we look at um, it being known as the Lust card in other decks, including the Crowley Thoth deck, which I'm sure that we will be getting into. And so there's this huge component of it that has to do with sexual desire, with attraction, with perhaps even romantic desire to some extent, although I think the emphasis here is really like sexual energy. So we see that. Oh geez, where should I take this next? We see also the idea just of having faith in oneself and having like strength of character and stuff like that. And so that kind of ties into the overall idea of strength, I suppose. But you know, having faith in oneself is a little bit of a different kind of a vibe. And I think if there's anything else that I really want to get into before we proceed. It can deal with physical energy levels at times. You know, it's a fire card. It's ruled by a fire sign. The ego itself, which is associated with the sun that rules this card, is something that is all about that which energizes things and stuff like that. With it being card 8 of the major arcana, that's going to associate it with the 8th house, which corresponds to Scorpio. And so we'll see some of that energy tying in. The idea of transformation, which fits the overall theme of the card when you really think about it. And the idea of exploring the darker sides of things also fits the overall theme of the card. Being all or nothing, you know, these sorts of things. Hopefully we can unpack these things further. So let's see. Need one of those small plug-in ceramic coil space heaters from Sunbeam used to dry out concrete to make you nice and toasty. It does sound nice. Or maybe if I just got another radiator, which I have now, maybe if I had 2 of them in here, that would be enough. All right, and I must remind people we are not doing tarot readings on this stream. That is, instead we are here to analyze the strength card in depth. If you really want a tarot reading, then you'll have to wait until we are between sections. So I guess that would be my overview of the card. Like, I'm tempted to go deeper and further into it, but I guess I think I want to wait at this point until we get to the actual like documents that we'll be reading, so that I can see what they have to say and then give my thoughts on that, because there is a lot here, but you know, this is supposed to just be the summary. So but as for like what I think of it when I get it in a tarot reading, like how I would interpret it like that, typically this idea of using my mind to bring in or to rein in the darker emotions, or the querents, you know, whoever's asking a question, if I'm reading for someone else. Physical energy, commenting on that, you know, depending on where it falls in the spread. And that's mainly it these days. Maybe also having faith and belief in myself, or the querent needs to have faith and belief in themselves. Those are the main things that I think of when I personally draw this card, whether I'm doing a reading for myself or someone else. Doesn't the yellow background present fear? Not to my knowledge. I don't know. Is there anything in particular that makes you think that it does? I think in this case, the yellow background would probably represent the idea of the sun, the rulership of this card, and the vivifying force of that. You know, this whole, I wish I could explain this better, but this whole idea of it being ruled by Leo and also ruled by the sun, and Leo being ruled by the sun, and that connection to the ego, this all connects together in quite magnificent ways. And I wish I could put it into words better, but I'm just not quite sure how. But it's this idea of, well, the ego inherent in this type of physical life experience that we're having is the driving force in human consciousness, at least, in the way that we are. It is the driving and directing force, and especially in its connection with the conscious mind. And so it's only appropriate that this card would have that rulership, with it being about using the mind, maybe even using the ego perhaps, to work with these darker emotions and drives and stuff like that. Learning how to use the ego, which can be perhaps destructive in a positive way, or maybe even learning how to use, I don't know, there's so many different ways you could look at it. It's almost like you could say maybe learning how to use the positive side of the ego to rein in or train or temper or bring under a more peaceful control the destructive sides of the ego. Using the positive side of the ego to help rein in the negative side of the ego. You could look at it like that too. You've heard that yellow can show fear or just caution. Well, in this case, this card is about overcoming fear. So I guess, well, whether it symbolizes fear or not, it is indeed about overcoming fear. And so that idea does fit in significant ways. But speaking of colors, I also recall that the white robe that the woman in the card is wearing represents purity. So we have this idea of purity working with something that is very dark to bring an overall strength. And oh, geez, I hit my desk. I guess we'll get more into that as we go. Is that a lion on the card? Yes, it is. That is a lion. Just like Leo, which rules the card. All right. So let's see. I'm just all over the place today. So as I mentioned earlier, I did find a couple of books on my computer that have some stuff to say about the strength card, which we can get into soon enough. But first, I'm just going to pull up the Biddy Tarot ebook entry on it and start there, as we usually do. And we'll see what happens. All right. And I will be right back after I grab a tissue. All right. You guys will just have to bear with me today. I'm feeling a bit out of it. We have the full moon perfecting in just a little over an hour from now at 12:48 p.m. Eastern time. And I don't know about you guys, but I am really feeling it, and it's distracting my focus somewhat. But I will do my best to proceed anyway with this analysis of the strength card. So, this is the Biddy Tarot ebook entry on the strength card. This is what we're going to start with, and then we'll look at other articles and books and whatever. And I'll take any questions that you guys have on the material while we're reading or after or whatever. Don't push myself too hard. That is indeed my spiritual practice. It is indeed. All right, so let us relax and focus and continue. Strength description. Strength is the first card in the second septenary. This septenary emphasizes the forces placed upon man by his environment. The strength archetype teaches you that you have the strength to tame the beasts within yourself. Meditating on this symbol can assist your process of honoring and experiencing the inherent strength that is within your nature. The sign associated with this card is Leo, the lion, of course. The rune is Thurisaz. The color is yellow, the masculine color we saw as the background of the last card, the Chariot. The fact that strength is a woman indicates that we are not talking about physical strength here, despite the color. She has the infinity symbol above her head, the same symbol of the adept we saw in the magician. Her white robe is that of the innocent fool, indicating a purity of spirit. The blue mountain in the background is the same phallic symbol seen in the lovers. The lion is a symbol of our animal passions and desires. Notice the lion has his tongue sticking out. Animals that are preparing to bite do not stick their tongues out. This lion is happy to submit to the woman. Her left arm represents mental effort, while the right arm represents physical effort. Notice the right arm is merely holding, while the left arm is exerting all the pressure. The crown on her head represents the fullest, most beautiful expression of nature and transient life. That's part one of the description. So there's something I wanted to say about that. Yes, there was. They mention, of course, this card immediately following the Chariot card, which we analyzed last week. And again, I think it's very interesting as we note that each card of the major arcana is both a reflection and the opposite of the previous card and the subsequent card. And so last week in the Chariot, we had this idea of a sort of a different kind of strength, like a willfulness and determination, right? A much more like emotionless kind of strength or willpower or whatever. Whereas, what did I just do? Whereas this week in this card, the strength is a whole different kind of strength, one that comes much more from working with one's emotions or from faith or from, this more, I guess, more like feminine kinds of energies, whereas the Chariot, I guess, was more masculine. Although the paradox is that the Chariot is ruled by the moon, which is feminine energy, and strength is ruled by the sun, which is masculine energy. So I think that's funny how the creators of the tarot chose to sort of invert that, which I'm sure is on purpose. Probably commenting more on how there's the male within the female and there's female within the male. So, but that, that's interesting, seeing it going from the like rigidity of the Chariot card to the more calm, like faith in oneself kind of strength of the Strength card. Let's see. So I was doing something important. Hope everyone's doing well. That's okay, little laughing lug. I'm happy to have you here. You haven't missed much, don't worry. I've just been freezing in this really cold room while I wait for my heater to warm up. So let us continue. This card represents strength, determination, and power in a manner similar to the Chariot. However, the differences are obvious at a glance. Instead of a powerful, focused warrior, we encounter a gentle woman, unarmed and without the protection of armor. She overcomes the lion with a quiet strength which can only come from within. Where the Chariot represented outer strength and will, the card of Strength represents inner power, the power of the human spirit to overcome any obstacle. That the woman represents the spirit is manifest by her white robe, representing purity, and the symbol of eternity above her head. She wears a belt and crown of flowers and stands unprotected in an open green field. The Chariot indicates that worldly success is possible if our goals are pursued with focus and energy. I don't know if that's a mistake there at the ending. I don't know why they're talking about the Chariot again. Maybe that's supposed to say strength. Strength indicates that worldly success is possible if our goals are pursued with focus and energy. I think someone made an error there at the end mentioning the Chariot, but whatever. So There is one other aspect of this card that I think I should mention at this point. And I mentioned it briefly earlier, but I want to talk about a little bit more before we go further, which is this idea of, well, as I mentioned in other decks, it is known as the Lust card. And particularly in the Crowley Thoth deck, it's known as the Lust card. But in that deck, and I think others, the numbers are switched. Whereas this is actually card 11 in other decks. And Justice, which is card 11 in the Rider-Waite, is made to be card 8. Which, this has always mystified the hell out of me. I don't understand why Aleister Crowley or anyone else would do that. It doesn't make any sense really, because it messes up the correspondences and stuff like that. It messes up the what's the word I'm looking for, like the procession of correspondences. But for whatever reason, that is a thing. If you look in other decks, this won't be card 8, it'll be card 11. Which, if I had it, if/when I get any decks that have this as card 11 instead of card 8, I will literally probably take like a black permanent marker and cross out those numbers and replace them with the numbers that correspond to the Rider-Waite, because it just doesn't make any sense to me. There's no reason I can think of for doing that other than maybe as a test to see, I don't know, to try to separate the initiates from the adepts, or the uninitiated from the initiated, or what have you. Hello, Luminiferous, or Ginny. Hello, Ginny. Phone is at 8%. Need to switch phones. Oh no. I know how that is. My phone has had issues. All right, so anyway, with all of that said, let us continue. Meanings. You need to develop true strength. To do so, balance the aspects of you that are human, animal, and divine. It may seem impossible, but love, kindness, and a brave heart can bring them into balance. Usually, we think of strength in physical terms, big arms, powerful legs, but there is also inner strength. Inner strength comes from an exercise of the heart muscle. It is perseverance, courage, resolve, and composure, qualities that help us endure when times are tough. In the past, a person with inner strength was commonly said to have character. He or she could be counted on in the darkest moments. I think there was something I wanted to say about that. Just that there's also this idea in connection with the strength card of that I've heard before, of realizing that, you know, when it comes to physical strength, like, I don't care how strong you are, unless you're literally the strongest human on planet Earth, which there's only going to be, I guess, one person like that. Like, there's always going to be someone physically stronger than you, you know? It's almost like, I guess this is kind of still in the realm of theory in my mind, but the way I see it is maybe another thing that this card is commenting on, that is a point in human consciousness, or the development of the ego, the development of a human life, is the point in life where you basically realize that physical strength can't solve everything, you know? It's a sort of like aspect of maturity, perhaps, you know, where you realize that there's always going to be someone stronger than you, or even if you were the strongest person in the world, well, you know, there's strength in numbers, there's guns, there's military forces, you know, like physical strength or brute force is not enough, you know. It's not the only thing that you can get by on, like, no matter how strong you are. So that is obviously an important realization to have, but I don't know. I mean, if you look at the brain, and you look at like the most primitive part of the brain called the reptilian brain, that's one of the things that it adheres to, is this idea of like might is right, and that physical strength is basically everything. And so you could look at it that way too, is that's like a part of our nature that we have to overcome at some point. And then, of course, again, just to emphasize the idea that in life, there will be times where your emotions can flare up and be like very out of control. You know, maybe it's very appropriate that we're analyzing this card right now because we're literally just under an hour away, as I mentioned earlier, from an exact full moon, and a full moon in Cancer, no less, a sign that is very emotional. And so emotions are already on high overall in the world right now. Like some people are going to feel it more than others. I personally am feeling it way too much or way more than I wish that I was. But when emotions flare up in that way, it's like, yes, you have to have great strength, especially if you're needing to do something or whatever. You can't tend to your emotions right away. But again, this is not strength through a resisting of emotions. It is strength through a working with the emotions, a taming of the emotions. And so it's very important to keep that in mind. You know, I was looking at this card recently, like before the stream, and I thought, you know, in some ways it actually reminds me of the Temperance card, because both are talking about this idea of tempering, though obviously there are very significant differences between them. But I thought, yeah, it kind of reminds me of that idea as well, in a way, of learning how to sort of perform that alchemy or bring things back into a more centered state through the use of the intellect. So let me look at the chat. Wow, that's a lot of devices that are malfunctioning. Maybe the full moon has something to do with it. Who knows, maybe. Wait, that is no good. They're fucking with you. Don't fuck them. Oh boy. All right, so let us continue. Card 8 represents this energy of quiet determination. Strength is not a flashy card, but one that is solid and reliable. Card 8 also represents the patience and compassion. I think it's supposed to just say card 8 also represents patience and compassion. Getting angry is easy when events turn sour, but dealing calmly with frustrations takes great strength. So does accepting others and forgiving mistakes. We need strength to mold situations softly. The Chariot controls through mastery and authority. Card 8 is more subtle, even loving. Notice how the lion, itself a symbol of strength, is being guided and tamed by the woman's gentle hands. Strength will appear in a reading when its qualities are needed. It can be a reminder not to despair or give up. You have the inner strength to endure and triumph. If you are pushing too hard, you need to withdraw for the moment and be patient. If other people or circumstances are driving you crazy, remember the strength that comes with love and forbearance. These will see you through the hardest moments. That's true. It's funny. When we are caught up in the intense momentum of negative emotion or of any kind of adversity, it can be hard to believe that we even have the inner strength to handle such things. And yet somehow we do. And I'm not even sure how we do. You know, I'm not going to pretend like I know that when I don't. I'm not even sure how we do, but we do. And we might not feel it right away, but it seems that what happens, generally speaking, is that eventually, sooner or later, we find that inner strength again to deal with the circumstances of our life or whatever adversity we're facing or whatever. So I find that very interesting, how it can seem we can have ourselves be so convinced in our own powerlessness only to eventually find inner strength again. We eventually find our strength again, and then we realize that that state of being convinced of powerlessness was an illusion in and of itself, though it seemed very real at the time. This card means triumph of love over hate. Higher nature triumphs over material desire. The querent is learning to release fear and let it go. Ability to endure hardship. Funny enough, this card actually appeared in my tarot reading today that I did for myself, a Celtic cross reading, and it appeared in the hope to achieve position. Funny enough. Reversed, however. But anyway, strength and courage will be applied to all endeavors. There is little to fear with your confidence. Results may be slow in coming, but you will hold your own, get a lot accomplished, and summon up enough energy to do what it takes to get the job done. And in some way, you'll be recognized or rewarded for your efforts. There will be altercations stemming from an imagined slight or unexpressed resentments. See, that to me sounds like a reversed meaning. So, I don't know. Want positive results in business or love and overcome the obstacles to the attainment of that goal. There are powerful spiritual forces at work, and obstacles to your success will be overcome. You will be given the power to succeed. Actions: showing strength, knowing you can endure, having a gallant spirit, feeling an unshakable resolve, taking heart despite setbacks, having stamina, being patient / a rock, dealing calmly with frustration, accepting others, refusing to get angry, showing forbearance, being compassionate, giving others lots of space, achieving quote-unquote soft control, persuading, guiding indirectly, tempering force with benevolence, demonstrating the quote-unquote strength of love. It's interesting also to consider that this card, when it talks about the areas of the body, it talks about the heart a lot from what I've read, I guess, and like the cardiovascular system and stuff like that. But I think that's also very appropriate and interesting, this idea that it talks so much about the heart, as if to say that this kind of inner strength really does come from the heart. It comes from working with your heart, perhaps even listening to your heart. And so I think there's a whole area of potential exploration there, but I just want to mention that. You know, a lot of people, at least, I don't know, from what I've observed anyway, a lot of people are like not in touch with their own hearts, including me, by the way. It's something that I'm working on. Like a lot of people, like if they put their attention upon their heart, they will immediately feel like a wall there of like resistance or whatever, because a lot of people have been hurt and they're sort of afraid to open up. And so, you know, as cliche as it sounds, this idea of like opening your heart, I guess is kind of a thing that we really need to do as a human race. And an open heart is almost essential to true connection, I would say. Also, like if you're going to really connect with people sooner or later, you're going to have to be willing and able to open your heart. Again, I know how cliche that sounds, but it's true. So, this is an important karmic period, and actions taken during this time will be the seeds of your tomorrow. If you are feeling challenged, it's because you are harboring a deep-seated misunderstanding, mistrust, or resentment towards someone, perhaps even God, and you are being given the opportunity to resolve it once and for all. Remember, love conquers everything, even karma. I would like to know more about what that entry right there is getting at exactly. When they say love conquers everything, even karma, I'm not sure exactly what they're getting at. Is that like an idea that if you have some kind of bad karma, that through expressing love and openness, that can be transmuted and what's the word I'm looking for? The word I'm looking for is not coming to me, but you know, like usurped or I can't think of the word. But anyway, then it says keywords: strength, courage, patience, soft control. So, any comments or questions on the material before we get to the reverse meanings? That would be your guess as well. Yeah, seems to be the most likely scenario. It's just there's so many different ideas and perspectives that people have on this idea of karma Some people, even who are very spiritual, are outright against the idea of karma and say that it's basically flawed. And I'm not quite sure where I fall on that spectrum, but I would like to find out more about that at some point. So I'll also remind people, as I forgot to give in my preliminary remarks, I usually forget something, that again, one of the main reasons that I'm studying these cards and doing these streams and think that it is so advantageous to study these cards is because basically the tarot is a representation or a map of human consciousness. These cards are a reflection of who we are, and so by studying them, we're actually studying ourselves and studying our path through life. And it's uplifting to the soul in so many different ways. It's spiritual nourishment. It can help purify your own vibration, can help make your life so much easier, so much more enjoyable, but also help you understand the parts of your life that are not easy, that are challenging, and that are not so enjoyable, because those are a key part of this particular kind of experience as well that we call human life experience. So again, the idea, the point that I'm really wanting to make is that I'm not studying these cards just for some like theoretical fun thing. Studying these cards actually brings great benefit, great practical, everyday even benefit to one's life. Understanding these cards is understanding yourself, and when you understand yourself, life becomes highly enriched and so much easier to deal with, particularly in the area of great challenges. I will stay calm. They want salt drop, which is to say they want the Empress to fall, which is to say me. They want salt to drop. I don't get it. I don't agree with karma as some kind of universal justice, but I do believe that you attract the kinds of people that you yourself are, and if you are negative, expect to get negativity back. Yes, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I don't know. What even is my perspective on karma at this point? I believe I'm certainly willing to go along with the idea that what you put out is what you get back, and that you will indeed reap what you sow. But I don't know, this idea that people even mean different things by karma. Some people will connect it to past lives and stuff like that. As far as karma in the sense of just this life goes, I don't know. Let's see, if you do something to hurt someone, that's going to come back to you. Well, I mean, I guess I agree with that, just because when you're putting out any kind of negative energy, it has to come back to you. You have to draw that back to you. But I don't know if it's as simple as that is the thing. And as far as past life karma goes, I don't know if I buy into that either. I mean, maybe that's a thing, maybe it isn't, but I just don't know. I haven't seen enough convincing evidence of that. I think a lot of times actually what happens is that people will use this idea of past life karma to try to justify or rationalize why they're not doing well in this life. And in doing so, they just hold themselves that much more apart from where they want to be, and hold themselves even longer in basically where they don't want to be, in their misery or their suffering or whatever. And so I think it's often used either consciously or unconsciously as an excuse to try to explain why someone's not doing better than they are doing, when what they really need to do is get a greater handle on their vibration. They need to do shadow work. They need to do trauma work. They need to analyze their beliefs. They need to find negative beliefs and transform them. They need to do all these kinds of things. That's what's really going to bring about change in their lives. So I think the idea of past life karma is largely, if not entirely, a negative belief. That's my perspective on it. I'm gonna go for everyone's sake, including my own. Oh no. I hope you're all right, Luminiferous, aka Ginny. I hope you're okay. I'm not sure what's going on, but I hope you're all right. I hope you feel better. If it's any consolation, I feel completely messed up today myself. Well, not completely, but significantly messed up. Again, we've got the full moon in less than an hour. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They use it as a reason for why their lives are not what they want it to be, and instead of making changes that will benefit them, they accept it's bad because of karma. Yes, exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, exactly. And that's the dangerous thing about these negative beliefs, and why I've said for so long, I've said from day one of these live streams, in fact, that it's so important that we analyze our beliefs, that we get in touch with what we believe to be true, because a negative belief is self-fulfilling. Like, it will attempt to prove itself to you. It will seem true. So that's, they're so dangerous. They have to be analyzed. Hello, Connor. Welcome. All right, so I think it's time for us to move on to the reversed meanings. Yeah, I was especially so you guys didn't see this earlier in the stream, that like more towards the very beginning, but not only are the vibrations or whatever from the full moon, like, not only were they distracting me, but the freezing cold temperature in this room was making it extra hard for me to focus earlier on. But now I'm beginning to regain control as it warms up in here, thankfully. So I just want to point that out. I'm no longer freezing, so hopefully I can focus much better from here on out. So anyway, reverse meanings. There are two main themes to this card. The more obvious is the strength we have, both internal and external. The second theme is taming the beast within. Strength offers you the hope of contacting both your inner and outer strength. It asks you to find the confidence within yourself to present yourself to the world as strong, assertive, and persevering. Reversed, strength suggests that this strength may be currently lacking. Now is the time to work with that. If you have been feeling doubtful of who you are, strength gives you the confidence to fight those doubts. Look towards the positives in order to maintain your self-confidence and self-esteem. So on the strength card, yes, it is strength, aka lust. Do I have my ginger tea? No, not today. Today is, well, I guess I had ginger tea on caffeine days as well, but today is a particular kind of caffeine day where I had green tea to start with, and now I'm having a Monster. All right, so let's see here, where were we? The other aspect to the strength card is that it asks you to tame the wild beast that lies within. Inside of each of us is a passionate and instinctual side which, depending on the person, will either burst out frequently or infrequently. If you're one of those people to act impulsively or irrationally and blurt out angry comments or negative things to others, the strength card calls on you to try to tame yourself. The woman in this card is calmly subduing the lion by offering peace, love, and warmth. You may need to do the same to prevent yourself from leaping out at others and saying some things you might later regret. Again, I want to emphasize to people that this card is depicting an image and idea of working with the darker emotions, not against them. You don't want to resist them. And so when you're feeling angry or whatever, as that article was just mentioning, the idea of having strength is not to just force yourself to keep those ideas to yourself per se, but it is instead to bring them under a loving control, to, how do I say this? It is very important to express how you really feel and what you really think. But when you're angry or you have a grievance with someone or whatever, there's a loving way of expressing that, and there's a hateful way of expressing that. And that, in my strong opinion, is the real difference. you know, we could come back to this idea of criticism as well, which, well, I'm sure we'll get into a lot more next week with the Hermit card being ruled by Virgo. But when it comes to criticism, there is a hateful way to criticize, which is contemptible and, not acceptable, basically. But there's also a loving way to criticize, a way of saying what you think and feel, even if it's very intense, but in a respectful way. And that is what I demand of myself, and that is what I demand of others in my life. It's also, I'll have everyone know, what I demand of those who watch my streams. And so when we have when we have people come in who are rabble rousers or troublemakers or whatever, they must be held accountable for expressing themselves in ways that are basically not respectful and not acceptable. But that's kind of a whole nother subject. And yet when that happens, I still, generally speaking, I almost always refuse to ban anyone anymore, because I recognize that everyone is a reflection of an aspect of myself, and so I want to work with that aspect. I don't want to try to block it off. However, I will say this though. If anyone ever comes in here and starts attacking my viewers, any of my other viewers watching my stream, that is where a line is crossed and they will be removed. So just want to throw that out there since it's kind of on the subject of what I was saying. All right, so let us continue. Be aware of your own personal strength. Is it lacking, and what are you afraid of? Or are you letting the beast inside come out and attack those around you? Do others find you intimidating because of the power and confidence you exude? Maintain a balance between the very strong and the very weak. Yeah, and I guess that could be another thing with strength here when we have it, in fact, reversed as we were going over here. Like, with its association with the sign of Leo and the sun and the ego, strength reversed appearing in one's reading could indeed manifest or talk about a situation where someone is overly caught up in their ego, where they are over identifying with their ego. And now that's not to say that you shouldn't identify at all with your ego. I don't subscribe to that philosophy. I believe that the ego is a part of the overall self, the overall personality that has its rightful place. But there is indeed this idea of an over-identification with the ego, an over-identification with the you that you think you are, but that you really are not. So there needs to be an understanding that this self-image that we have is not always what we really are, and we can't identify with it exclusively. Or we can't do that and be mentally and emotionally healthy, basically. They come in very demanding, acting like they paid you. It's true, they do. And in streams like this, expecting tarot readings when there's nothing about the title, thumbnail, or description that would seem to imply that, which is very weird. And same with astrology streams, they expect astrology readings when there's nothing to imply that. Very strange. Very strange. Where were we? The reverse is uncontrolled emotions, passions, self-indulgence, temperamental, weakness of morals and or mind and body. Materialistic nature dominates. Fear of having too much passion, abuse of power, lack of harmony in your life. All right, that concludes the entry in the Biddy Tarot ebook for the Strength card. So any comments or questions on this before we continue? I think while I'm awaiting any comments or questions on the material. I'm going to Instagram that I'm live, or post to Instagram that I'm live. I don't know, should I do it on my personal Instagram or my other Instagram? I think I'll do it on my other one this time. All right. Have I read the Thoth site yet? No, not yet. In fact, I thought I should probably wait for you since you usually request that. So we can do that whenever you want, basically. Let's see. All right, here we go. Hello, yes, I'm live again on Poetic. You know what? I'm going to redo this. Hello, yes, I'm live again on Poetic. How do I redo it? I always say that instead of youtube.com/poetic. I say Poetic Heretic. I want to like say that instead of whatever. Hello, yes, I'm live again on youtube.com/Poetic Heretic 90. There's also a link in my bio, and we were talking about the Strength card, which I'll try to show here along with the chat. So come watch us. Hello, yes, I'm live again on youtube.com/Poetic Heretic 90. There's also a link in my bio, and we were talking about the Strength card, which I'll try to show here on the chat. So come watch it. Hello, yes, I'm live again. Just 1 second, people. youtube.com/Poetic Heretic 90. There's also a link in my bio. Okay, this should be good. All right. We'll probably look at the Thoth site here in just a bit. No, is Instagram not? What just happened? Yes, we're having technical difficulties. All right, 1 moment, please. Okay, I think maybe it posted. Live again on YouTube. Okay, I guess it did. Let me just. Okay, yeah, it must have posted. All right, so let's go ahead and without further ado, we'll look at the Thoth site right now. So I guess I'll just pull it up on my tablet, which I'm pretty sure I just need to search Esoteric Meanings Thoth Lust card, probably. Yeah, I wonder if I can just type in this and then. Yeah, here we go. All right, there it is, esotericmeanings.com. So again, for those who don't know, as I mentioned earlier, the Strength card is known as the Lust card in other decks, including the Crowley Thoth deck, which is like one of the best out there. And I mean, one of the very best. The Crowley Thoth and the Rider-Waite are probably the 2 best that exist, as far as I know, in terms of like accuracy of symbolism and depth of symbolism and all that. And so, like, associating it with this idea of lust, I guess, is kind of a different take on the card. And again, I have to say, though, I'm not by any means hugely knowledgeable about the Thoth deck. My knowledge is much more about the Rider-Waite, so I'm not going to get deep into that because there's not a whole lot that I even really know, but we will read over this article and see what we come upon. So here we go. So they show an image of it right here. So yeah, it's quite the different take on the Strength card compared to the Rider-Waite deck. And you can also see in this image up here, you can kind of see it, that indeed, as I said, in that deck, it is known as card 11. You can see the XI at the top, which again makes no sense. But my personal theory is that, well, the more I think about it, I think Aleister Crowley probably was trying to test people or something by doing that. But anyway, overview of the Thoth Lust Tarot card. Challenges conventional views on what a spiritual path and spiritual teacher/teachings should be like and what qualities they should have. We are not going to be punished by a God who has moral issues against our actions. Guilt and self-inflicted punishment is not necessary in our life. Lust implies we can experience life with situations which are not necessarily conventional, but if we have natural talents, we should develop them. But on the other hand, we should not just indulge in our wanton desires. Lust in its higher sense is the bliss of experiencing integration with something higher than yourself. Now that's fascinating. Wait, have to be done to fit into the Golden Dawn system of magic. Ah, yes, interesting. Yeah, I would really like to be able to solve that mystery, if possible. I've never really come across any thorough or like theories about it or anything. Just the brief ideas I've already mentioned. It can relate to the intense attraction between polar opposites in general. So in the Lover's card, we have separation into opposites, and this creates a tension that naturally wants to be resolved. Lust is also connected to the sexual act and therefore creation and life, but it is also very much about death and dissolving our identity into something higher, and so philosophically this card covers a lot of ground. Crowley also wanted to portray this card as bringing in the new eon of Horus, ruled by Aquarius and Leo. Details of the 3 eons can be accessed in a previous article. Fascinating. Ruled by Aquarius and Leo, huh? Interesting. Those are opposite signs. Opposite ends of the zodiac. And obviously, as pretty much everyone has heard, we are coming into the age of Aquarius these days. Gonna check one little thing here real quick. Okay, looks good. Okay, and there's a brief entry on the Rider-Waite version of it. It says this card depicts the gentle control hands of the passion and animal instincts lion by the higher self, Lady in White, with spirit working through her, Lemniscate above her head. Yeah, this is another one of those cards, even the Rider-Waite version, that I'm familiar with, at least in very basic terms, and maybe even a little bit more than that, but I'm sure there's just so much more to it that I have not even dived into before. So I'm really looking forward to this. All right, so here has it on the Tree of Life, representing or showing where the path of it is between Geburah and Chesed, and so I will show that. All right. Now it says, on the Tree of Life, the pathway of the Lust card connects Chesed, mercy, to Geburah, power. And these are the highest ideals on the Tree of Life below the Abyss. So there is a high vibration to the Thoth Lust tarot card, as it is not on the lower part of the tree. Even though this card in its lowest aspect can relate to things like deviant sexuality, the spiritual component of the passion is its highest expression. This is supported by the fact that its path on the Tree of Life is dissected by the High Priestess card, linking Tifereth to Kether, and so there is a connection with this very important pathway that forms the ethical triad. And then it shows It shows the Sephiroths 4, 5, and 6, Chesed, Geburah, and Tifereth. Little chart there. I will show real quick. Chesed is concerned with structure and building up, whilst Geburah is destructive, and so we have two opposite processes on the Tree of Life linking this card. The Thoth Lust Tarot card places emphasis on the expression of passion in our life and living in the moment, always being prepared to cast off the old and bring in the new, using the creative and destructive energies of these two Sephirah. There's a saying, newness needs room to grow. The upper portion of the card emphasizes this and is described in the symbology section below. It's fascinating also when you consider that, at least on the Rider-Waite version, it is card 8 and thus corresponding to the 8th house and the sign of Scorpio, which is all about this idea of breaking down the old in order to make room for the new. And so I guess we see those undertones showing up in that way in this card as well. Thoth Lust Tarot card, Hebrew and astrological attribution. Lust is represented by the letter Teth, which means a serpent. There are two aspects to the serpent. And it shows the letter right there. Lowest expression, sexuality, sexual deviancy, lower mind, earthly things. Parentheses, the serpent crawls on the ground and has a close association with the earth. See Bill Donahue interpretation. We have the 7 deadly sins. It shows a little image of that. 7 deadly sins. If I can get it to focus. Which some will try to purify from themselves, but in vain. Highest expression, Kundalini serpent equals a divine energy in the base of the spine, which rises through the chakra system. Interesting. And it shows a little image of that. Get it to focus. What did you miss, Ryan? I don't know, not a whole lot. We just started in on the Thoth website article looking at the deeper symbolism of the Strength card, or Lust as it is known in the Crowley Thoth deck. The serpent is also seen in the top part of the Thoth card and is symbolic of renewal and growth as the serpent sheds its skin. It is associated with the zodiac sign of Leo. The lion is known as the king of the beasts, having courage and leadership. King of the beasts. We need courage to be able to accept all of who we are and continue on merging with the ecstasy of spirit despite all the temptations of the world. Thoth Lust Tarot card symbology. A middle third of Lust card. Scarlet Woman, parentheses, Babylon. Represents the desires and pull of the lower nature, and to this end, Crowley refers to his personal lovers as the Scarlet Woman. The image below shows how someone has depicted her, exhibiting ecstasy, holding up the Holy Grail. It shows another image right there. The howling wind of Babylon. We'll see if you can get this on your other phone. All right, good luck, sir. Good luck. I hope that you succeed. Holy Grail. In her right hand, right side equals spiritual. I'm not sure whether the artist of this picture knew about the High Priestess connection to the Tree of Life, but they have the moon's energies flowing into the cup. With this card, we might have a mixture of the moon's positive and negative energies flowing into this cup, hence the quote-unquote battle we have controlling the energy of this card. She is touching her breasts and vagina as if to imply a strong sexual passion. Crowley says that the energy of the moon also intermingles with the sun's energies within the cup. It contains the male and female sexual fluids and therefore contains life and death, birth, death, and renewal again. We have the Kundalini energy depicted, and if we look close enough, we can see this shape arising out of the cup. And it shows us a Kundalini chart. Red reigns, inner left hand. The left side is the carnal side, the right the spiritual, and so, for example, in the Bible, we have the Garden of Eden in the east, parentheses, or right side of the compass. Red is for passion, and the reins symbolize her connection to the beast or our lower nature. Lion serpent, symbolic of the phallus. The Scarlet Woman is looking at this, and it has 13 rays emanating from its head. 13 rays. 13 is the number of the Hebrew words for love, Akkad or Achad, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, Achad, and unity, Abba, Ahbah. Added together as in the Book of the Law, Crowley states, "There is no bond that can unite the divided but love, all else is a curse." All right, shows another image there for what we are about to analyze. Seven heads of the beast, symbolic of the aspects of Crowley himself as stated in the Book of Lies, chapter 49. 1. Angel. His mission. Angel is essentially the spiritual impulse within. 2. Saint of the Gnostic Catholic Church. 3. Poet, his interest. 4. Adulterous woman, his sexual preferences. 5. Man of valor, description of himself. 6. Satyr, one of a class of lustful, drunken woodland gods in Greek mythology, as shown in the image below. Seven, lion serpent, Leo was his ascendant. That's fascinating. So, is what this article saying that Crowley was talking about himself there, or am I just completely missing something? I'm not sure. B, upper third of lust card. Shows another image. Horizon, the dawn of a new life or a new perspective of life. 10 circular emanations, 10 energized Sephiroth of the Tree of Life. This implies our life has been energized/spiritualized both internally and externally. They also appear below the horizon, and so again we have the axiom as above, so below. These circles or Sephira are not ordered, though as on the Tree of Life, as a new aeon is dawning and they will need reorganizing into this new energy. 10 horns equals of the beast are, wait, what? Of the beast are serpent-like, and they destroy the old order to recreate a new eon. A similar meaning is found at the bottom of the card, with the beast trampling the saints. C, lower third of lust card. And I'll show these images while I take a sip of my drink. Beast trampling on saints. The beast ignores their quote-unquote purity as they are in denial of their nature as humans. We all have a carnal side, and if it is repressed, it can be just as easily, I think that's supposed to say it can just as easily be a burden to us as always relenting to it would be. Therefore, Buddha talked of the middle way. The figures in the Lust Tarot card are supposed to resemble the shape of the Hebrew letter Shin. And again, we see that letter and the figures. Shin is associated with the Aeon card, lower left symbol, whereby the old religious orders are replaced by a new philosophy. And you can see that card right there. Thoth, Lust, Tarot card, and Book of Revelations. Oh boy. Crowley uses the term Babylon, and in reality it is synonymous with the meaning of the word Babylon in the Bible. I have talked about the allegory of Babylon in Revelations 14, which can be accessed here, and they give a link. However, Crowley's card depicts the Scarlet Woman and Beast, which are mentioned in Revelation 17 below, so we will consider them as part of the interpretation of this card. Interpretation of Revelation 17. It is beyond the scope of this article to go into the fine detail of this scripture, but the principle is the same as that described in detail in Revelation 14. Revelation 17 describes the overcoming of the lower nature by the spiritual impulse. Revelation 17:1, and there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. 2. With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. 3. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. 7 heads equals 7 chakras, 10 horns equals Sephira on Tree of Life. 4. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Scarlet equals passions, cup equals grail, where the alchemy of her actions takes place. 5. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. The lower nature sucks in all. 7. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. Angel is spiritual impulse within, will give the seeker distance from the attractions of the lower nature if it is listened to and meditated upon. So that's very interesting. Angel is the spiritual impulse within that will give the seeker distance from the attractions of the lower nature if it is listened to and meditated upon. Fascinating. Thoth, Lust card, and sex magic. In summary, Babylon is the Scarlet Woman, Crowley's lovers, representing the carnal desires. The beast, Crowley, is awakened by her attractiveness to him. The beast also represents our lower desires being activated by the Scarlet Woman, or our worldly attachments. We must remind ourselves of the lofty position of this card on the Tree of Life, and that also it is a part of the major arcana sequence, and therefore relevant to a spiritual journey, and so joining in ecstasy with the highest of impulses will quicken our spiritual progress. Let me focus in on that some more. We must remind ourselves of the lofty position of this card in the Tree of Life, and that also it is a part of the major arcana sequence, and therefore relevant to a spiritual journey, and so joining in ecstasy with the highest of impulses will quicken our spiritual progress. With the highest of impulses will quicken our spiritual progress. Well, there you go. Used for the highest purpose, we can transform this sex energy upwards to become spiritually aware, and a new eon awakens in our life, light on horizon, with our new world needing readjusting, Sephira, as our old perspective dies, snake horns, due to the alchemy of sex magic, Kundalini raising from the Holy Grail. Hello, Champagne. Welcome to this little class on the Strength card. aka lust. The fortune to lust transition. In the Wheel of Fortune, we know that change is about to happen and soon. We may also need to alter our present course, move things in a different direction, or turn things around to ensure that you are creating the right outcomes in, I think it's supposed to say, your life. As a result of choices opening up to us, we are directed to follow the path in which we have a passion for life, as represented by the lust card. The trap of this step is that the passions that we follow are either going to lead us towards our spiritual goal or away from them. We must be discerning about what we put our energies into. We must fully accept ourselves as a whole, so repressing the instinctive desires is not desirable. We are encouraged to rejoice in them with this card, but accept them for what they are and be able to step out of the attachments they bring to raise our consciousness into spirit through developing passions for a higher expression, such as tantric yoga. Then it shows another image. Thoth Lust Tarot Card Divinatory Meanings. Leo is a fire sign, which combines with Crowley's sexual imagery to make interpretations of this card focus around our energy and passions. Feeling a new impulse for creative growth in your life, the dance of life becomes precious and you connect with what gives you the most passion. Every moment is a new beginning, and once the depth of each moment is perceived, there is an ecstasy about just being. The past no longer holds us, there is only the moment. This is allowing our creative force to flow through us, driven by our passion and unburdened by our past. Wow, now that I find particularly interesting. So let me read that first sentence again. Every moment is a new beginning, and once the depth of each moment is perceived, there is an ecstasy about just being. Once the depth of each moment is perceived, there is an ecstasy about just being. This reminds me of the idea of being present, or being sort of at one with everything, being here in the moment, living in the now, living in the moment. And that's true. When you're, see, my theory is that if we could see things the way that source, or whatever you want to call that universal energy, sees things, we would see absolute bliss in every moment. Or at the very least, we would see, as this article puts it, so much depth in every moment. And indeed, once we're able to see that, if we can achieve that type of sight, that type of spiritual vision, then indeed there is an ecstasy about just being. That's absolutely correct. I've done it myself. I wish I could do it all the time, but I'm not there yet. But I've done that myself. In fact, being present is a huge part of my regular spiritual practice, and has been for over a year now. It just, the better you get at it, the more you can enjoy the flow of life, basically. And so it's interesting that there appears to be a connection to that with this card. So true, it's all for the better, living and learning. Very true, very true. Let's see, and then it says, the past no longer holds us, there is only the moment. This is allowing our creative force to flow through us, driven by our passion and unburdened by our past. I do think, though, that a lot of people, like, they want to take a shortcut to that, whereas they see the downside to this practice of being present is a lot of times what people seem to do is they will focus on the present moment so much that they use it as a means of escaping / resisting themselves. Whereas truly being present in the moment is being present with yourself. And it's funny because that does tie into the idea of this card, you know, Rider-Waite indeed as well, which is what I keep saying here, that it's the idea of working with your darker emotions. It is not the idea of working against them. It's not the idea of resisting them. It's working with them And so to truly be present means to truly be present with your emotions, in fact. It isn't that you just focus on the present moment and you use that to like escape your emotions. That's that's going in the wrong direction, basically. So lifting the veil is a saying. Indeed, indeed. Leo, so I experience this all the time through life, inside out. Interesting. Yeah, the connection to Leo. Perhaps we'll get more into that at some point in one of these articles. So, the next section is called Thoth Lust Upright. 1. Relates to having the desire, passion for a particular situation. 2. Engaging with life to the fullest. 3. Accepting our instinctive / carnal / animal nature, or things which are not usually considered spiritual, not repressing them, but making sure that we have a conscious control of them. Yes, which is another huge important point. This idea of integration. This stuff must be integrated, you know. You can't just say one thing is spiritual and one thing isn't. Everything is truly spiritual. And anytime you say this is spiritual and this isn't, you're setting up more divisions. And separation is the antithesis to unity. Using courage, this is number 4, using courage to follow our passions that serve for our highest good. 5, sexual union / passionate relationship with sexual / emotional intensity. 6, being comfortable with your sexuality. 7, doing something because you are passionate about it and without overanalyzing the situation. Lust does not have reason. It's all very interesting. I can make a comment about the being comfortable with your sexuality idea because so many people in today's world, and for, I don't know, probably since the dawn of the human race perhaps, or at least for many centuries or perhaps even millennia, have repressed their sexuality, and there's all kinds of issues associated with that. And so indeed it is very important to be comfortable with one's sexuality, and that appears to be an ongoing challenge for the species today. And then this idea of doing something because you're passionate about it and without overanalyzing the situation. Lust does not have reason. Yeah, that reminds me of when you have this idea of that we hear so often of like follow your bliss or follow your passion. Well, it's very true, but one of the pitfalls of that is people will try to fit that into a kind of box. They'll try to say, oh, I'm going to follow my passion so that something happens. And once you do that, you've completely messed up the whole process, because the idea is that you follow your passion for the passion itself. You follow your bliss for the bliss itself. You follow what feels good for what feels good in and of itself. So is that a connection with this card? Well, this article seems to imply that it would be. Thoth Lust Reversed. 1. Emotions and sexuality / sexual deviance are ruling your life to the detriment of your spirituality. 2. A lack of passion for your particular job, partner, life circumstance. 3. Being sexually dominated in a relationship or lack of sex drive / unable to connect with this part of you. 4. Struggling with your sexuality. 5. Habitual reckless actions leading to bad outcomes. Very interesting stuff. Yeah, and so you see, it's almost like the vibe that I've generally gotten over the couple of years that I've been studying this stuff is that the Thoth card, being lust, is the one that really has the sexual connotations with it. Whereas like the Strength card, or as it's known in the Rider-Waite deck, the Strength card like has them to an extent, but not nearly as much. But that's just the vibe that I've gotten. So All right, I need to take a little breather here before we continue. So if anyone has any comments or questions, let me know. If any comments or questions on this material, and I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. No comments or questions, then we shall continue. All right, next we have the Thoth Lust Tarot card in the Celtic Cross spread. And you can see the particular kind of Celtic Cross that this article is displaying. So here we have the idea of if the Lust card appears in each position of the spread and what it might mean. One, heart of the situation. Do we have enough passion for the situation, person, or job? If it appears in position 2, the possible obstacle, it means a relationship which is lacking passion / love / spark. If the Lust card appears in position 3, unconscious influences, it means a tendency to act without thinking of the consequences. If it appears in position 4, recent past, it means sexual / emotional upheavals. If it appears in position 5, hopes and goals, it means to find something in life that really fires us up inside. If it appears in position 6, short-term future, it means need inner strength and resolve to work through some emotional situation. If it appears in position 7, how we are dealing with the situation, it means using inner strength to overcome emotional hurdles. If it appears in position 8, environment, it means relationship which is passionate and intense emotionally and physically, a strong attraction. If it appears in position 9, guidance and warning, it means need to resolve emotional relationship issues to move on. If it appears in position 10, the overall outcome, it means having a lust for life, finding our true path which will energize us for our highest good. All right, looks like that is it for this article. So, comments, questions on the material, let me know, and then we will continue. So I found that very fascinating. The Thoth deck, as always, never fails to deliver with all kinds of deep and fascinating interpretations. Let's see here. Yeah, I really like the idea of getting in touch with one's impulses and stuff like that, and integrating them into one's spirituality, because that is very important. You know, we have to learn how to integrate as beings and stop cutting parts of ourselves off, because the more we split ourselves off, the more traumatized we become. Or really, it's trauma that splits parts of ourselves off, and makes us sick, leads to negative manifestations, basically hurts our lives in every way. And so it is by reintegration that we heal and improve our lives in really every area. So let's see here. Everything's looking good. All right. Looks like there aren't any comments or questions on that material. So we're going to look up additional articles now. These will most likely be more surfacey kind of interpretations, but those are important too. And once we go through some of those, eventually, well, there's another book we can look in, and there's also a couple of books, as I mentioned earlier, that I found before the stream that have some material also relating to the strength card. So we'll look at those too. Can't talk as much today, doing work and listening. That is okay, little laughing lug. I understand. So let's see. Type in strength card and see what comes up. Okay, I guess the first one that's coming up is trustedtarot.com. Let's go there and see what we think. Strength, energy, facing problems, strength, vitality, willpower. Strength's meaning. Strength is the rawest form of power, and you possess it in some form. It is a very happy card if you are fighting illness or recovering from injury. As might be suspected, its influence over you, and the use you put it to, can trend towards light or dark. You likely trend towards facing your problems courageously, head-on, and conquering them through perseverance and will. With this ability to overcome life's obstacles, though, comes the responsibility to control yourself, and it is this card that may be a warning to take command of your own actions or emotions before they damage you or the people you care about. Past. Your strength is balanced, and you have both physical endurance and mental strength. This inner strength may lead you to explore the other potentials for your abilities. Present. Do not turn down any offers that will change your future. Have faith in your own convictions and be strong enough to trust where you will land. Future. There is a strong energetic release in your future which will lead you into major life changes. By understanding your true value, you will make the most of a wonderful chance to improve your life. So let us remind ourselves here, however, again, I would say there are far more potential interpretations than just those, but those are just the ones that are listed on this article. And let me think if there's anything else I want to say here before we continue. I don't know. I just think that the present interpretation that they gave is kind of lacking. It says, do not turn down any offers that will change your future. Have faith in your own convictions and be strong enough to trust where you will land. Well, it's kind of ignoring the whole basis of the card, which is this idea of using your mind to rein in your darker emotions, to tame your darker impulses and stuff like that. So, I don't know, but whatever. Yes, no key interpretation. The Strength card shows a presence of self-assurance and confidently facing problems in your life. It suggests a person who enjoys power but has the capacity to exercise great self-control in all matters. Patience and strength may be required in your pursuits, and the answer you seek is most likely yes. All right, so that concludes that brief article. Next up is Keen.com. Take a look at that. So far, I haven't seen much that I disagree with so far today, but don't worry, I'm sure it's coming. All right, here we go. Do you feel a little more in control with less effort than ever? Is it easier than before to maintain your position and engender respect? Has a relationship that might have once been frustrating lately been a source of joy? Has your anger over a situation made you more committed to taking responsibility and working toward positive outcomes? The Strength card is one of the most sophisticated cards in the tarot deck, representing a higher level of consciousness that takes responsibility in order to master yourself and your world. Under a golden sky, a woman pets a lion on its forehead and lower jaw. They stand on a verdant landscape, and the king of the beasts is tamed under the gentle petting. The woman gazes down with a peaceful smile on her face. Her robe is adorned with a floral garnish, and she is crowned with a flowery laurel on her head, above which floats a lemniscate, represented as the infinity symbol, the sign of infinity. The lemniscate is the same as that floating above the head of the magician, tarot card number 1. This is the symbol of possibilities and self-mastery. The woman depicted here is in the act of soothing the savage beast. She is in control of both her predatory instincts and the chaos of living in the wild, similar in calm appearance to the tarot deck's Temperance, card number 14. Aha, just like I mentioned earlier. Her mastery of the animal indicates that she has conquered more than just herself and exerts a control over aspects in the world around her. So I would say, again, in connection with that, like, indeed, if you see this card in a tarot reading along with the Magician card, well, basically, chances are the mental world is being emphasized a lot, as is your ability to use your mind to recreate things physically and or non-physically, to transmute your energy and or to like work with things physically. But basically, the mental world is being emphasized, and mental abilities, and also the abilities to work with something. So it's interesting to think that this card also has a bit of a mental connection as well. I mean, or I would think that it has to anyway. So a little bit of air with our fire here. Meaning in past, present, and future positions. When a tarot reader sits down with you and deals out the cards, the spot in which each card lands has a predetermined significance. This changes the meaning of the card. Various positions represent your past, your present, and your future. Sometimes the difference in a card's energy based on its tarot spread location is subtle. Often this difference is significant. I want to remind people, not every spread has a past, present, future position. When strength is in the past position of your reading, you can see the basis of your current situation stemming from a mastery of your circumstances. You maintained composure recently and are benefiting from your patience and expertise. Sometimes this card represents a state of boredom in your past that led you to stray from familiar conditions that you felt you had outgrown. Your ordinary world had been mastered, and the journey you are now on is based on a desire to challenge yourself and see all that life may have to offer. In the present position, Strength is one of the best cards in the tarot deck. You are in the midst of getting to know how to rule your world. You are not domineering in this control. Strength is a card that exerts its control through understanding and cooperation. You are in charge, but others do your bidding because you have made it worth their while and created a joyful context in which all of you interact. The blessing this card brings in the future position is the reassurance that whatever is pestering you in life now will soon come under your control. Strength in the future position represents a loving dominance of circumstances that may seem beyond your power at the moment. Long-time challenges will be met and mastered if you keep with the path indicated by the cards leading up to Strength. The best part of this card is learning and getting to know and appreciate yourself. The woman in the Strength card has the animal under control, but it is the look of peace upon the lion that gives this card its greatest possibilities. There is no leash or shackle on the king of the beasts. Your peacefulness and self-acceptance will arrive because you will see yourself as the world views you. Card combinations. Only a few cards in the whole deck are dealt out into your tarot reading. This makes the reading unique. It is almost impossible to replicate. As cards interact with each other, your reading is subtly influenced. The meanings of each card change depending on the cards around it. When Strength is in a reading with a Magician or Temperance, as discussed above, there is a greater likelihood that your mastery over events will lead to getting exactly what you want. There are 4 cards of the Tarot's Minor Arcana that carry the number 8, and each of them are related to Strength. The 8 of Wands represents your ability to stay on message and create new realities within a consistent theme. I am calculating what I think of that right now. I mean, I guess that would be one interpretation, but I don't think such a reading could ignore the 8 of Wands association with things happening very quickly and swiftly and brainstorming and working under pressure and all these kinds of things. The 8 of Swords is a card of keeping yourself aloof among all the tension that is about you. Well, if I saw that with the Strength card, I would probably think that it had much more to do with transformation through the use of the mental abilities, because the 8 of Swords is a card that, at least in my interpretation and from what I've read and studied of it, talks about transformation and the need to get in touch with one's deeper, more unconscious emotions. And we see this connotation in the Strength card as well with it being numbered 8. But anyway, the 8 of Pentacles is a card of mastering your money-making potential through patient diligence. A commitment to consistency pays off with this card and underscores the control that can be grasped when we aim to control our immediate surroundings instead of trying to take on the whole world. If I saw those 2 cards together, I would think that the reading is calling on you to continue working away at whatever you're working on, whatever your project is, and part of the way that you're going to do that is by using your mind to bring things under control, to rein in your darker emotions. The 8 of Cups signals abandoning what comforts you as you strike out to take on the world, another theme of the self-confidence that is inherent in the Strength card. I'm not sure what I think of those 2 together. Abandoning what comforts you as you strike out to take on the world, another theme of the self-confidence that is inherent in the Strength card. Well, there's this idea of sort of doing what has to be done with the 8 of Cups. like doing what needs to be done. And I guess with the strength card, we kind of have that too. Like if the darker parts of yourself are out of control, then you have to do what needs to be done, which is bring them back under control. Any of these appearing in the reading alongside strength bolsters your control over these specific things in the world. A great card to see in a reading with strength is the Tower. This is a card associated with uncontrollable chaos. To have it appear here would mean that your ability to master things around you even extends to the luck of the draw. If you have been feeling like taking a little gamble, be it in love or Las Vegas, this intense tarot combination is a green light on your road to taking bigger risks when the payouts are even bigger. That's interesting. If I saw those two cards together, the Strength card and the Tower, I would tend to think that that would indicate one, being able to maintain control over things that are normally uncontrollable, with the Tower's connotation with disaster and things collapsing, stuff like that. It would be like saying, oh, well, you're going to continue to have strength even when things are basically uncontrollable or would otherwise be uncontrollable. Also, I can't believe I didn't notice this right when it happened. 6 minutes ago, we had the full moon in Cancer. So let's celebrate that. The need for self-protection and security and whatnot. So I don't know if you guys are feeling that strongly, but I know I certainly am. In fact, let me try to fix that blur. This whole day so far, and by the way, if anyone has any comments or questions on what we just read, then go ahead and enter them in the chat. But in the meantime, I'll talk about this stuff in general. Like this whole day so far for me, I have felt that vibe. And so I guess it is indeed that Cancer full moon, you know? I felt more of a need to have everything sort of under control and like in order, or I won't feel emotionally secure with what I'm doing or whatever, or just in general. So it's funny that I guess I'm picking up on that energy, though it does make things a little bit difficult though when I want to do a live stream like this one, because I'm so wanting to keep things stable and under control that it's interfering with my concentration at times. And it's like, can't I just go back to feeling like myself or whatever, enjoy my life? But full moon's only for today. The energy will begin waning very soon here, or technically, I guess it already is, or should be. Just been thinking the whole day. I see. Yeah, well, it's going to manifest differently for everyone, you know, depending on like what house of yours it is in. Like with me, let me see here. With me, it's manifesting in my 9th house, which talks about travel and distant horizons and big ideas and stuff like that. But, you know, whatever. Did a couple tarots earlier. How did those go? It's always fun. So let's see. Actually, I probably should not move on to the next article yet, because I see we're coming up on the 2-hour mark in just over a minute. And I think that's probably when I should cut this stream, or like, what am I trying to say? That's when I should stop this stream, take a break, and then come back later for part 2 after lunch. So I'll just kind of talk about stuff in general here for a bit, and then we'll shut it down, but just for now. Then I'll come back after an hour or two with part 2 of the strength card analysis, which hopefully we can spend several hours on and really dive ever deeper into this card. And hopefully I'll also be able to ride the energy of this full moon a little bit better by then. Which actually, I guess the longer that I stream or whatever, the easier it is to find stability under these kinds of conditions, and that's been what I've been experiencing today. So that's a very fortunate thing, I guess. Plus, it being super cold in here earlier wasn't helping anything. I was like shivering as I was trying to deliver the material. Maybe I should have put my coat on, I don't know. But I thought that this would be enough, but anyway. They went well, just confirming I should stop some bad behaviors. Sounds like something the cards would say. All right, part 1 been great. Glad you think so. Glad you enjoyed it. Let's see. Well, if you're, wait, Connor, if you're Scorpio, and we're going just by your sun sign, then let's see, the full moon would be falling in your, I should know this by heart, but I guess I don't. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Your 9th house as well. It's falling in your 9th house if we go by your sun sign, and it's falling in my 9th house if we go by my ascendant. So anyway, this has been a lot of fun. I look forward to coming back later. Remember, you guys, just want to mention this here as well. I stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays, so I'll be back on Monday. And actually, this Monday, what I'm planning on tentatively, I don't know for sure yet, but what I'm planning on is that I'm going to, for the Seth streams, do a part 1 and part 2 of those this time, simply because I have plans later that day. So I'm going to start streaming earlier that day. So like probably roughly around the time I started streaming today, but maybe a little bit earlier, I'm not sure yet. So like 10 or 11 a.m. my time. But if not, then just in that general area. And then I'll, just like with tarot, I'll take a break to have lunch, then come back and do a part 2 for the Seth stream on Monday. And that's just for this time, as far as I know. And then, of course, Wednesday I'll come back with whatever topic I cover that day. But indeed, in the meantime, I'll be back in just an hour or two for part 2 of our analysis of the Strength card. Will there be a Strength part 2? Yes, there will be. Yes, there will. So you're saying hope your plans go well. Thank you so much. I hope they do too. I am actually going to experience the very rare occasion of being able to get out of my house. And so I'm really looking forward to it. I thought it was funny, by the way, on that note, one time when someone asked me in one of these streams if I could do a speaking engagement or whatever in another state. And it's like, I would love to do that if I could find my way to another state and do such a speaking engagement. But I can't even find my way out of my own house normally, let alone to another state. So I guess we'll have to wait until I figure out how the hell to do that, to do such things. But anyway, you remember that. I like it when people remember these things. They get the reference, or they get, they know what I'm talking about. Anyway, it's been fun. I'm Poetic Heretic, and I'll be back in an hour or two. So 2:11 or 3:11 Eastern Standard Time. So I'll see you guys then. Have a good rest of your day. Until then.